Welcome to 1 Million Cups Kansas City. Thank you guys for coming. I would like to first welcome all the new people who have never been to 1 Million Cups. Raise your hand if this is your first time. Wow, thank you guys for coming. Who out here has been to 1 Million Cups since the beginning? Anybody? Wow, Rick Usher, thank you. I would like to welcome our panelists for today. Grant Reagan, if you want to stand up and tell a little bit about yourself.
Good morning. My name is Grant Gooding. I'm CEO of a company here in town called Proof Positioning. We help entrepreneurs take the guesswork out of how to differentiate themselves from their competitors, create a category, and build a powerful brand. My area of expertise is in brand positioning, but my background is in mergers and acquisitions and business valuation.
Hi, and I'm Reagan Carrizales. I'm founder and CEO of Collective. We create accessories for activity trackers, and previously was with Silicon Prairie News, and getting ready to join actually a company here in town in the mergers and acquisition group. So my expertise is a generalist in a lot of different things.
Thank you. Okay, let's get started. I would like to welcome our first presenter, Kristen Wolf of Windhaven Farms.
Hi guys, my name's Kristen Wolf, and I never do these presentations in my daily life, so I'm going to cheat today, and it looks like I'm reading it because I am. I've been the owner of Windhaven Farms for about 2 years now, and I took over the company after I received my master's from the New School in New York. Windhaven Farms is a local meat distribution company. I basically find a way to get meat from local farms in the area to consumers in Kansas City. You think of the local buzzword, or the buzzwords around local food, usually think organic, sustainable, cage-free, stuff like that. The buzzword I like to use, though, to describe my business is responsible. My farmers have a responsibility to raise the best animals they know how, while keeping in mind animal welfare, the environment, and their own profit margins. My processor, the guy who cuts up my meat, has a responsibility to give me the best quality cuts possible, while still honoring the animals that my farmers so carefully raised. I have a responsibility to ensure that my farmer is being taken care of, that his animals are sold, and that he was paid a fair price. I also have a responsibility to my customers to ensure that they get excellent meat at a price that isn't cost prohibitive. I have a responsibility to educate them as well on what they're buying, invite them out to visit the farms, and allow them to ask questions, even allow them to ask for specific cuts if they so choose. The way I run this business is simple. I commit to buying the animals I expect to sell months in advance. I sell beef, pork, chicken, rabbits, and eggs. Each animal needs a different amount of time to grow into the best animal it can be. When I commit to the animal, I commit to pay a fair price to the farmer. This price is always above the commodity market. So the farmer requires me to commit if he wants to ensure his profitability. This commitment not only ensures the farmer that he will be able to sell his animals once they are finished, but it also gives me a reasonable time frame to figure out my sales approach. After I buy the animals, I then take them to the processor. Now this is where my profit margin comes in. The trick here is trying to find the best way to butcher the animal. I want to honor the animal by using every part I possibly can, tip to tail. While this serves my own personal moral stance on the whole thing, it also ensures my profit margins are high enough that I stay in business. My goal when I process each animal is to end up with the most profitable, but also most sellable cuts of meat. The trick to maintaining profitability is ensuring that I have the sales lined up. This is where my customers come in. At the moment, I have 2 sales outlets. The majority of my sales are to wholesale accounts, like restaurants. I'm in constant contact with the chefs, telling them about my farms, my animals, and building trust through my consistent fulfillment of their orders. If I'm not out delivering meat to the restaurants, I'm figuring out what they will want on their new menus and how to provide the meat that they need. I then take this information back to the processor and get my meat cut up to order. I want to make as much money as I can off of the cuts, but also want to move a volume of meat. I've committed to these animals months in advance, So if I don't sell everything I'm supposed to month, I could end up with a situation where I backed up inventory. I mean, nobody wants this. It's a nightmare. The other part of my business is this Meat Buyers Club. This is a club you can join by paying $35 a year. This annual membership gives you access to my online store, where you can order whatever you want, however much you want, and then pick it up at a drop-off point in the city once a week. This Buyers Club was meant to allow individual consumers a chance to buy meat from me. I try to make it easy on them by not requiring them to pay a lot of money up front. I also don't require a minimum order. I try to make it as affordable as possible without forgoing my own viability as a company to ensure that most people possible can buy meat from me. My market for the Buyers Club is any individual interested in local meat. I have one drop-off point in the city so far, and I'm working with a few companies to invite their employees to sign up for my Buyers Club. If I get enough people through one company to sign up, I'll start a new drop-off point. So with all this in mind, my goals for the business are to grow as large as I can in Kansas City. Growth is nice in this business because it's based on the pace of the animals. Every time I want to expand, I tell my farmers to grow more animals, which gives me a few months to start my sales calls. In terms of market saturation, eventually I'll run out of restaurants in Kansas City that have the capability to buy local. Eventually my Buyers Club will plateau. At some point, I won't have any more institutions like schools, hospitals, or cafeterias to sell my meat to. Once I reach that point, I want to be able to expand Winhaven Farms to other cities. Winhaven Farms is incredibly replicable in other cities. The benefits to the community are immense. My business provides farmers with a market to sell their meat at a price that allows them to stay on the farms. This not only means more money to rural areas, but more people living on farms as well. It also affords local chefs the opportunity to support local farmers by providing the restaurants with good quality products at a price they can work with. I still have quite a few growing pains to work through, but I'm confident that I'll be able to keep up my steady pace and consistently provide more and more meat to Kansas City. Presentation.
Thank you for that presentation. I don't know if you know this, but you're pretty much exactly what I picture when I think of like a butcher / meat distributor.
Yeah, heard that before.
So you had a lot of facts, right? Where you are, where you're planning to go, where you're planning to grow. One question I have specifically is, I'm gonna guess that you probably got started with your wholesale accounts. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you have this Meat Buyers Club, and so how's that going?
We just started in March, and I'm kind of scared to let it grow too big. So we've just been working on slow growth.
Because you have supply side to be concerned about.
Yeah. And the whole online ordering thing too is so new to me. I don't want 10 orders to come in at once and all of them to be wrong. So.
Okay, so because of that supply side issue, that's one of my concerns is you're relying on local farmers to be able to provide your product, and you'll never be able to have control of that with your existing model.
Right.
How do you plan on overcoming that challenge?
Right now I have one farmer for each animal, and that's just kind of the way it works. With the animals, we have a specific product. So my hogs, for example, are a specific breed of animal, and they're grown a certain way on the farm. And for me to overcome like the supply side of things, I'm gonna have to figure out how to get that hog on different farms. And so over the next year, we're planning on creating farrowing houses to grow little baby pigs and spread them out to more farmers. But eventually, I want to get to a point where the farmer isn't relying on me wholly to sell everything. I want him to have a separate market to sell to. And then I want to be able to have 4 or 5 different farmers that I source from. So I'm not just like relying on each farmer, I guess. Not relying on committing to the animals.
So you have a plan.
I do have a plan.
That's good.
Yeah.
And the other question I have is based on just the position that you have inside of the market. This is becoming hopefully a trend that will stay. Consuming organic, grass-fed meat. So, but there are a lot of people that are getting into this.
Yeah.
And I would even estimate that there are people that are using some similar farmers, right? Sounds like you have exclusive relationships, which is good, but how do you plan on differentiating yourself from these other distributorships or organizations who are focusing on the same thing you're focusing on?
I've been trying to work on that actually. I welcome the competition. My whole goal is to try to get as much meat into the city as possible. Whether I do it or not doesn't necessarily matter to me. I know it's a bad business model, but at the same time, it's kind of nice. The more people buying local, the more people are going to start looking for it. And the way I want to differentiate myself is just being consistent, being easy to get a hold of. My Buyers Club, for example, the other alternative for a lot of people is going to sign up for what's called a CSA. It's called Community Supported Agriculture. They can go to a farm and they buy a package of meat once a year. And that package could be $1,500, but they have to put the money up front and then they get a box of meat every other week or once a month for the rest of the year. It's a good way to get local meat to the people, but who has $1,500 at the beginning of the year? And also, with the package of meat, you don't really get to choose what you get. And I don't know about you, but I'm kind of a picky eater. So I set up this Buyers Club so people wouldn't have to pay a huge lump sum and also allow them, the ability to pick whatever they wanted. So I guess I'm trying to differentiate myself by just being a little more accessible.
So that leads me to another question about your customer. Who is your customer? Because he just mentioned over here, he's like, no, people might have $1,500 and they very much, if it's not the restaurant, who is your consumer?
My consumer is, I guess people that are fairly involved in local food right now. Like the Kansas City Food Circle, I get a lot of people from there interested in local food. A lot of the customers at my restaurants.
Have you ever asked them if they would be willing to pay that premium?
Yeah. A lot of them went with me instead of other farms because they couldn't afford it.
So one of my other questions then is just about brand partnerships. So there's a couple, I think Kansas City is interesting that we have a couple restaurants that are sourcing their local meats. And so have you thought about in terms of a marketing and just telling that your story of working with those restaurants and creating some type of a partnership?
A partnership with who?
Brand partnership. So let's say, for instance, like Anton's downtown or, and now I'm blanking on restaurant. There's one more in town that is sourcing, Local Pig is sourcing a lot of their meat here, and so exploring sort of brand partnerships with them.
Yeah, the Farmhouse is one of the restaurants that I work closely with, and we actually make sausage together, Michael Faust and I, so that's sort of a brand partnership there. I've been more interested in the other food distributors, local food distributors in town, trying to get involved with couple guys that sell vegetables to restaurants to try to combine our distribution networks.
Okay, we'd like to open up the questions to the audience, so if you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll come around with a mic. Okay.
Kristen, what's your background and how did you get involved in all this?
I was initially really interested in coffee. I was in love with Latin America and wanted to find a way to have the farmers be involved in direct trade. So I actually went down to Honduras, stayed there for a little while, went to Colombia, talked with local farmers there, and tried to create a network between that farm and the United States. All through that, I ended up writing my master's thesis in the meantime, and I had a professor that prompted me to look at local food in the States, and ended up meeting a farmer who started Windhaven Farms. He asked me to work for him, and he ended up passing away a couple years ago, so I just inherited the business. So started with coffee and ended up with meat. Sampling, I could find a way to get you a sample, but online you can sign up for my Buyers Club, order whatever you want, and then my drop-off point in the city is in Waldo. It's around 80th and Warnell, and I'm there every Tuesday, so that's where people pick up their meat.
Question in the center.
Hello, very interesting model, and there's been many people here that have presented different quality meats. How do they get in touch with you? Like someone in my fast track class last year has a farm south of Lawrence. and he's raising the same type of beef. And so will you seek out more than just one supplier per type of meat?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And yeah, they can contact me online. I'm constantly talking to different farmers, kind of like his initial question. I'm gonna need a bigger network, but.
Question here in the center.
Other than supporting the local economy, what are the tangible benefits of buying the kind of product that you have versus mass distributors?
The product is really, really different than conventional farming. The taste is different, the texture of the meat is way different. All of my animals are out on grass, so it's just almost a completely different product. We don't use hormones or antibiotics. Some people care about that, but yeah, it's just a better product.
We have a question right here in the middle.
Are your farmers organic certified, and what does that mean exactly to be organic certified?
Yeah, so in the meat world, being organic means that you feed your animals organic feed, that you haven't used any pesticides or fertilizers on your ground, and that you don't use any hormones and antibiotics. Organic feed right now in Missouri is really cost prohibitive, so we don't use organic feed. We don't use hormones, and we use antibiotics when we absolutely have to, but other than that, we don't consider ourselves organic, I guess.
Question in the center.
Hi. Since you deal in kind of boutique meats, and as a restaurateur, if I were to connect with you, do you feel like you can reliably supply what you have?
Oh yeah, yeah. Since that's been the majority of my business so far, that's been my main thing, is making sure that every week the chef gets the order he wants and that he knows days in advance so he can get it from someone.
Yeah, because I mean, some of the boutique places like Farmhouse don't use as much, but you know, you scale up and
Yeah.
like let's say Capital Grille started having a local relationship. Could you? Okay. And I have a second quick question. I was reading online about laboratory grown beef. Have you heard about that yet?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it sounds a bit spooky, but it sounds like he can. I was getting to the point where he's reliably making it almost affordable. Do you think how would that impact you 5-10 years down the road?
I just have it would be a really different product, so just be what people wanted. I mean, I don't think I would sell that, but if somebody wants it, they can go over there and get it. If they want my stuff, they'd probably buy from me. So.
Question in the center.
Regarding the Meat Buyers Club, do you spread the word through like having a station at farmers markets or anything like that? Like what's another way we can find out about the Meat Buyers Club and how we can support it?
Yeah, yeah. I do a lot of local events, and then I have little pamphlets in a lot of my restaurants. But there's information about all my farms online, and like I said earlier, I guess that's just the easiest way for people to sign up, I guess, and email me for questions. And
We have a question in the center here. Yeah. Excuse me.
I'm actually the kitchen manager at Anton's downtown.
yeah.
I'd like to talk to you afterwards. I also used to work for Howard down at the
remember
Rieger.
you.
I've seen you many times.
Yeah.
What have you done? What have you done to convince, I would say, the restaurants on more of the corporate side, or even local chains to switch over to using a more local product? What have we done what have you done to push why this is a better product than what they're buying from the typical distributors of U.S. foods to convince them that this is the product that they want to get?
Yeah, yeah. I try to just get a small sample into the restaurant and see if they can run it as a special. They might like that and have fun with it and then try something else. And so usually with those corporate restaurants, we just run special after special. I still haven't gotten anything on the menu at a corporate restaurant yet, but working on it, I guess. But kind of easing into it, I guess you could say.
I have a question. How many local farms could you partner with that would basically produce the same product that you are like doing now?
As many as I needed to. As soon as I see the demand, I could partner with as many as I need.
Like, do you know how many in the market there are? Like in the Kansas City area?
How many farms there are? I know in the Kansas City Food Circle, there are over 100 now. So
Oh, wow.
there,
Okay.
yeah, a lot of farms.
Question right here. First of all, Anton's, I had an 18-ounce ribeye there last night. So shout out to you all. It was great. I was looking on your website a couple days ago, and I saw that your beef is not only grass-fed, but it's also grass-finished. I was a vegetarian for 3 years and decided to start eating meat again, but I'm very particular. Can you speak to the audience just a little bit about the importance of the grass-finished versus finished on corn for 30 days?
Yeah, yeah. There are a lot of different health benefits that people talk about, like the omega-3s are higher in grass-fed beef. But I'm more interested in the environmental side of things. Both of them, so I have 2 different beef farmers. One of them finishes on grain, because sometimes the restaurants want that, and then the other guy finishes on grass. But they both consider themselves like sun farmers. Like they really focus on their grass and trying to make sure their land is as healthy as possible. Each one of them, it's kind of neat. When you have cattle, they're not the best for the land. They'll leave deposits, places that are nitrogen rich and end up being bad for the grasses in the place that they drop. So these farmers both have chickens that go behind them and disperse everything, so their ground is fertilized. I guess for me, you don't get huge lagoons of waste. You don't get bare patches where the cattle are gonna go to the place where the grain is and try to eat there and then beat down the grass. So I guess it's more of an environmental thing for me.
Question to your right.
What's been your biggest lesson learned over the last 12 months?
Inventory. So I buy a certain number of animals and I have to sell that entire animal, and it's basically a puzzle. I have to talk to a bunch of different chefs and try to figure out how many restaurants can buy one animal at a time, and they never buy evenly. And in my mind, I think that it should all be set and exact and precise, but it's not. And so I've had to learn to kind of be flexible and kind of work on my feet in terms of sales to get all that animal sold.
Could you talk about the grass again?
Yeah.
Talk about your farmers and the focus on grass.
Yeah.
Why is that important?
A cow is going to need a bunch of different types of grass to be able to get all the nutrients that it wants. So like fescue is what we put in our yards a lot. It's actually a grass that's bad for cows. But it's in all these fields all around. And so if you have a farmer that's really committed to making sure that its animals fed out on grass, you need him to take care of his fields and bring in clover and bring in different types of grasses to feed out these animals. And so instead of focusing on the animal health or the end weight or the end goal, these farmers have kind of flipped it around where they focus on their grass. And if the grass is healthy, their animals are going to be healthy.
So you've specifically chosen farmers who focus on creating healthy grass because it's best for your animals and therefore provides a better product?
Yeah.
So don't you think that could be potentially what you could tell my man right there as far as why he should use you instead of your competition?
Yeah.
Maybe sort of like a, this is why I'm different from my competitors and better type of thing?
Yeah, I could definitely.
Maybe somebody should write that down.
I will write it down. Thanks.
Oh, we have a question up front. Does the size of the animal matter? Okay, I wanted to get that on the recording.
Yeah, the size of the animal matters. Certain chefs want certain things, and we're all used to really big beef that are finished out on grain and are these monsters. But when you finish on grass, they don't grow as big. They can, but at least mine don't. So you end up with smaller steaks, and it's kind of a talking point when I talk to these chefs about what to expect. And
Kristen, we have a question to your right.
Hey, Kristen, great presentation. Can you talk about, and this is kind of awkward, but the breeding trends with cattle and where you see that going?
Yeah, we basically breed mutts, at least on one of my farms. And we've tried to figure out the genetics of the animal that just work best for our farm. The farm, it's called Linenbringer Farms. It's a 3rd generation farm, and these guys have had their cattle for a long time. But we don't try to stick with Angus beef or Hereford or anything like that. We try to figure out what works best for our land.
There's a question here in the middle in the back.
I came in about 2 minutes late, so you might have mentioned this at the beginning. What is the time frame from slaughter to the restaurant plate, or if I'm a part of the Meat Buyers Club between there? Is it a day, a week, a month?
Depends on when I can get it into the city. So this week, for example, it's 5 days, just because I had to wait for my truck to go and pick up everything at my slaughterhouse and bring it into the city. But it's a couple days. I sell a lot of fresh meat, or I have been selling more anyway, so it has to be just a couple days.
Another question here in the back.
Hi, I noticed on your website you also do raw dog food. I was just wondering what part of your business that is. I knew someone who did that before, had trouble scaling it. It was difficult, but I know it used to be a trend, and with all the recalls in dog food now, is that growing?
I wouldn't say it's growing. That's kind of an offshoot for me. It's some of my waste products, like my bones. I just wanted to figure out a way to sell them. So if I can store up enough bones, I'll turn them into dog food. But it's not something I do regularly. I see it growing, but I would rather sell my bones to a different company that specialized in that, I guess.
Question in the center.
Do you have a process for inspection on these farms? And is it you that's doing the inspection? Because I'm thinking of, Chipotle, and of course my favorite is the Carnitas, and they're had some inspection problems with some of the farms saying that they're meeting certain criteria and they weren't. And so I'm wondering how you handle that.
Yeah. I have a long-standing relationship with my farms. I'm out to 2 of my farms every week almost, and the other 2 I'm out there every other week or so. So I watch the animals grow up, and through this relationship with the farmer, I know what he's doing. But that's a big concern of mine when I start growing and needing to source other animals. And that's one reason why I haven't, is just because I can talk all day long to a farmer, but if I'm not there all the time, I don't know what he's doing.
Okay, thank you. Before I let you go, what can we as a community do for you?
Spread the word about the Buyers Club.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, we've got a couple quick announcements. On the handout, if you didn't get one, we have them back by the coffee. We've got some great events happening in the near future for you to see. And did we tweet about that yet, the announcement sheet? We did it? Okay. So 1MCKC, hashtag 1MCKC. If you didn't get the announcement sheet, we send it out through the hashtag every week as well. Next week, we're going to be back in the labs. Who was here last week when we were in the labs? Can I hear if you liked that? Was that fun? Was that unique? Thumbs up. We have a lot of energy here every week, but when we were in a smaller environment, you could kind of feel it a little bit more. So we're going to be back there next week, so watch where you're walking when you come in. Nathan Kurtz is here to tell us about 1 Week KC. Come on up.
Thanks, Brian. How many of you have been to 1 Week KC before? Awesome. So not many of you. Let me explain what it is. 1 Week KC is an annual event. This is the 4th annual. It kicked off 4 years ago with the advent of the Chamber's Big 5 initiative, one of those Big 5 initiatives was to become America's most entrepreneurial city. And every year we take a week, usually in June, and have a whole slew of events to get entrepreneurs together. We know that education is really important. We also know that creating networks is important. And so I strongly encourage you guys to go ahead, grab one of these flyers on the way out. Check out the website. There's also, I'll highlight a couple events. There's a rookie lunch. So if you are new to the Kansas City entrepreneur community, or you know someone that is, have them RSVP for that. It's going to be starting next Friday. It'll be a lunchtime event just to come meet other people that are also new to the startup community, learn about what's going on, learn about the resources available from other entrepreneurs like yourselves. E-Day at the K is one of the big events. In fact, we're going to have a drawing at the end of today's meeting for 5 tickets. So the tickets are $20 online. We're going to give away 5 from the Coffin Foundation as a sponsor of the event. So the basket's over there. It was out in the front on the way in. If you have a business card, give you 30 seconds, run over, put a card in right now. Go ahead, it's fine, you go ahead and walk over. But we're going to draw and give away 5 tickets. If you don't win today, it's $20. Buy a ticket online. Come hang out with the other entrepreneurs who are going to be there next week. It starts at 4 o'clock. There's networking time. We're bringing in 5 entrepreneurs from around the country who are experts in their fields, have had failures, had successes. They're going to talk about their experience. We're going to provide food for free, and the $20 gets you into T-Shirt Tuesday's game. So come to that as well. Also, the other big event for the week, Demo Day, Sprint Techstars. It's at the Coffin Performing Arts Center. And the Techstars class is rounding up their 3-month accelerator program right now. Come check that out. There were 1,800 people there last year. It was a really fun event. We got to hear from the founders of the Techstars group. It's really a couple of big national events happening in Kansas City in 2 weeks. So grab a flyer on the way out. 5 of you lucky folks will win free tickets today. If you don't win, go and buy one. It's going to be an awesome event. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Okay, let's bring up our next presenter, Mark Orenek with chemistry. Let's hear it from Mark.
Good morning. I'm hungry for bacon with a side of beef. Who else? All right, so we're going to talk about chemistry. Chemistry is a web and tablet-based platform that aligns marketing and sales and drives what we call insightful, intelligent interactions. All right, who out there has had to sell anything for a living? Anybody? You had to close a deal with somebody to put meat on the table. All right, there's coffee for you in the back. All right, sales and marketing aren't very well aligned. It's awful. So we're out there humping, trying to get deals. Marketing gives us this big stack of brochures we got to carry out, and it's just kind of crazy. I want it here as a salesperson. The alignment, which is the opportunity behind this, is real. This opportunity is very real. Less than 10% of executives think that their sales and marketing efforts are aligned tightly. 42% of companies think it's a major initiative that they need to tackle. When you look at what happens in the field, 59% of sales professionals, they do stuff other than selling. So they're looking for materials, they're not out closing deals. And 60 to 70% of all the materials, this stuff here, is not used by sales. Why should companies do it? Why are 42% of companies looking at doing something? Because it's a big opportunity. Okay, companies that align marketing and sales show 20% increase in annual growth. It hits the top line and it hits the bottom line. They also have 38% higher win rates and much, much higher retention rates. So that is, folks, the opportunity that chemistry is addressing. Sales and marketing alignment really starts and should end with the customer experience. It's right there in the middle. If you do a search for sales and marketing alignment, you're going to see a whole bunch of marketing automation systems. You're going to see Eloqua, you're going to see HubSpot. One, they've done a really good job of optimizing for search. But largely, that's where that space plays. Sales uses things like Salesforce to track sales activity. But there's no alignment around that customer experience. Again, this is where chemistry plays. The competitive landscape. So because tablets are now gaining really good penetration in the enterprise, there's companies trying to do stuff with it. Basically 3 categories. Tablet apps, very narrow focus. On the right side, you'll see design technology that allows you to create documents for the iPad. We don't think the world needs another way to create a document. In the middle, full systems, full featured systems, is the space that chemistry plays in. Market potential, huge. 14.5 million salespeople in the United States of America alone. Okay? Tablet penetration is increasing. 90% of the prospects we talk to have not heard about this type of technology, and they've not heard about our competition. So we're at the very, very early stages of something that has the potential to be very, very big. So what makes chemistry different from the competition in our space? We have designed chemistry to be very, very simple to use. We know that if you don't give salespeople simple technology, they will not use it. Okay? It takes away from that time that they need to be out selling. Same thing with marketers. The next level of this that really sets us apart is that drive on insightful, intelligent interactions and what we can do with data to make that happen. Real quick pass through the system. Best way to see it is to schedule a demo, and we'll talk to you about how you can do that later. It delivers assets. So it has a robust asset management system that marketers use through their web portal, and also user management, so they can set up and assign people to regions, business units, et cetera. All that's controlled through Chemistry. The salesperson, they download the Chemistry app. When they log in, they will be able to pull those materials down. It'll automatically sync up with their role in the company, their function, the business unit, et cetera. It organizes those and syncs them up in real time. The sales professional can take that and set up the presentation however he wants. He can go from a PowerPoint to a video to a web-based tool, all seamlessly within that same application and not having to bounce in and out of applications to make that presentation. When you get done with your presentation, so I've just had a presentation, and I want to find out more about how that prospect is going to interact or what they're interested in. I can package up some of the materials that I presented and email that to them in an envelope. We can then track whether they open it or not, whether they're passing it around, how they're looking at it, and so we get really deep post-meeting information that helps us check and see what their interest levels are. We also add science to the already selling. So there's robust analytics behind this thing, and it's passively collected data. So we know what assets are being used. We know how the campaigns are working. We get all this data behind it that the marketers can look at and the sales management can look at as well. We empower with tools. So you can put calculators in. You can put things in there to not only advance that sales conversation, but also gather things about what they're interested in and use that from a marketing perspective to reach prospects and have a more targeted conversation. Of course, we're going to integrate with CRMs. We're working on the Salesforce CRM integration at this point, and we'll expand that to other major CRMs that are used by Salesforce. And security's a major part of that as well. So we have some cool things, military-grade data encryption's in there, but the ability to document lock and also the ability to expire a document. So your salespeople will never have an outdated sales sheet that has pricing on it, and then they're underselling where you should be in the marketplace. Milestones. We began scoping this thing out in April of last year. We started development with an aggressive team in July. We had our beta in December. We launched version 1.0 in February. We started on the sales cycle and been out prospecting since then. We will launch version 1.1 here any day now, and that'll be available in the App Store. And we've got version 1.2 lined up, an aggressive development schedule there that will be out in July. So who's behind it? My name is Mark Orenick. I'm a partner with Dan Salva, who's in the back of the room. We have a digital marketing agency that focuses on sales and marketing alignment, interestingly enough. So we've seen this problem for about the last 20 years. We have a ventures group within our agency, and we've launched 2 products. The first one is Nile, which we presented to 1 million cups last September. You'll see some really exciting announcements in the next 3 weeks or so about that, and then Chemistry, which you just saw. You can learn more at usechemistry.com. What we need help with, we're out looking for customers. We're looking for people to join our team. And we're out soliciting investment as well. Questions? Go to the panel. Thank you.
So what's the business model around this? Is this subscription based? Is
Yes.
this enterprise level? Talk to us about what that revenue model looks like.
Yes and yes. So there's enterprise level pricing. It's a per user based pricing that runs anywhere between, starts at $750 for a very small organization a year per user, and it scales down based on the size of the organization.
So is that licensing per organization, or is it user based? So if an organization has 25 people who are going to be on that, are you selling the license or per user?
Selling the licenses to the organization for the number of users that they have.
Okay, makes sense. When in terms of sort of that, you said the integration with Salesforce. So hopefully no one here works for Salesforce. I find it to be the most confusing thing in the world to use.
Correct.
I don't think it's very intuitive. I've had an opportunity to sit down with you before and go through Chemistry, and the UI is beautiful and I think very easy. So talk about that integration. Is this meant to sort of supplant someone using their CRM system, or is this integration what does that integration look like?
Yeah, I mean, the first level is the passing of data. So when somebody sends an envelope, we can pass that information and tie it into that prospect record in Salesforce, right? Ultimately, what people want is they want a better user experience for Salesforce because it is ridiculously complicated. And so as we map out the product roadmap for that, we will look to integrate as tightly as we can where people can actually navigate Salesforce within chemistry, but do it in a way that provides a better user experience so they don't get pissed off and mad.
And not use the product.
Correct.
Hey, Mark.
Hi.
So you're tackling a real problem. I mean, you see it every day, and I see it every day. It's sales forces and marketing departments don't talk. Marketing's job is to generate leads. They throw them over the fence. Sales closes them, and then they bitch at there because they're not good, and that's just the way it is. I'm trying to draw the line. I see how we're trying to streamline this, and is this more of a tool to be used during the sale, or is this something that can be more organizational in nature? Does that question make sense?
Not totally, but
okay.
yeah.
So I agree with the fact that salespeople generally we see them make their own marketing materials because they're on the ground, on the front lines, and so this is kind of solving that problem to some extent.
Yes.
A bigger issue, I think, that maybe could be an opportunity is that the marketing department is very rarely aligned. You're talking about marketing and sales alignment. This is where my brain went.
Mm-hmm.
They're very rarely aligned, which is what's important.
Right.
Like there's no communication that goes back and forth. So on the back end, is there some kind of communication where the marketing department can be like, oh, guess what? Everybody access, this type of information. This must be what's important, because that I think is a way bigger problem and a way bigger kind of revenue play for this moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, if 60 to 70% of materials aren't used, they just don't know which ones. It's the old adage, 50% of my marketing doesn't work, I just don't know which 50%, right? So the data behind this will give marketing insight into what's being used, how it's being used. You can look at what your top sales performers are doing and find out what order they're putting in, what materials are they using. You can look at the poor performers and find out what they're not doing with the system. So that's step one. And then the ability to communicate and make requests within the system to tell marketing, hey, I need something, and so you can gather that, have conversation around that. I think that's really the big issue with marketing and sales. They just don't talk, right? Marketing has their job, and sales has their job, and they don't think they understand each other, and there's just no dialogue around it. Data, at the core of that, can be a platform for that.
Agree. So is this something that you're intending to be, because there's a behavioral challenge, right? I mean, you have to get people to start using this when they're already using other, something else like Salesforce, which is a total nightmare, and but they've been trained on it. So how do you plan on overcoming that behavioral challenge?
Well, it's a presentation tool first and foremost, and they're not using something right now to present from a tablet, okay? Secondly, we just believe that UX is so great. We demoed this for a company that's a Fortune 500 company. The sales guy goes, that is so tasty, when he looked at the UX. And you very, very rarely hear that about software. So it's very simple. It's very easy for them to use and get results on. Everything else behind that's really passively tracked. So all that interaction with the customer, the salespeople don't have to put anything in. So as much as we can create this thing to be very easy and collect that data automatically, we'll get utilization out of it. And marketing has a problem with version control and, right? So some of it will be mandated and some of it will be accepted. We believe if we make the user experience really, really good for salespeople, they'll want to use it. And we know marketers will support it because it solves a problem for them.
So kind of a follow-up question to that. What does your ongoing support, maintenance of those what does that look like? Just because as you were asking that question, I was thinking, part of this, because it is such a behavioral change and a cultural change, part of the sales process is probably talking about the cultural impacts, but then also being able to support your customers and saying, have you looked at these, in terms of the data analytics, that will be a new thing for them to look at. So these are the type of documents that are being reviewed. We've been watching what what your customers are doing. These are the types of documents that aren't being used. Have you thought about, there's a lot of things that you could sort of prompt them to do. So what is?
Yeah, there's a services component to this where we actually will provide consulting services. Based on our experience as a marketing agency, we have those assets that we can put into chemistry, and we'll build that up. We typically recommend that they beta this thing with a small group, work the kinks out, and then roll it out more globally within an organization. Because the adoption, if it's messy, then it fails and everybody just gets mad and they don't use it. So there's some of that. We tell them to bake 30% of the fee into the onboarding and consulting process so we can help them get it set up. And then if they want to, we'll upsell other services to help them make sure that the materials are right, that what's presented in that is delivering a great experience that's going to move a customer.
Mark, you've done a good job of utilizing data as a sales platform for yourself. That I went through and took your litmus test.
Yeah.
And I thought that was well done. One thing that occurred to me when I was doing it, I thought was really interesting is, have you been able to implement this inside of an organization thus far?
We're in late stage, yes, in small betas, and we're in late stage conversations with several major clients.
What I'm interested in finding out when you get there is just from a growth perspective, what would 60% of people don't use sales? What was that? I'm sorry, I don't remember the number exactly. It was
60% of materials that are there for sales aren't used.
Aren't used?
I think that's.
I'd be interested to see, once you get it implemented inside of a large organization where you have a decent sample size, how many of those people don't use chemistry?
Right.
Right? Because that may lead to even more of a fundamental kind of problem we've made it more efficient, we've helped a little bit, and I would imagine that your numbers are going to be better, but how do you tackle that last 30%?
Well, if they can't get it on paper, they're going to use chemistry, one. Two, I think it's selling style. I've met people and their deal is, I don't take notes, right? Which works great until the follow-up comes and they've missed things in the conversation, right? So at that point, the selling style is not all that great. So I think that it is, that's why it's not tackled. It's just hard. I mean, we've known this problem's been there forever, and it is just really hard. And I think you have to create systemic, sustainable change, and change is a process, not an event. So you just have to kind of iterate toward that.
So I'll ask one last question, and then maybe open up to the audience. But what is your IP, or how are you protecting your IP here?
In terms of software, it's really hard to protect IP in software. So we just go really fast and get entrenched customer bases, and then after they start using it, it's really hard to change.
I've got a question for you to your right, Mark.
Okay.
What if you're a professional salesperson, but you work with multiple organizations? How would chemistry work for you?
So if it's a third-party sales distribution system, or I'm not quite understanding.
Well, if there's several companies you act as a salesperson for, can you use chemistry as one user, or how would that work?
Yes, we're working on that distribution model. So if you wanted to distribute through third-party salespeople, as long as the marketers agree to put that material in there, and it could be the sales support network for that salesperson. If the marketing materials are in there, yes, it can be used for chemistry.
Does the company come to you, or could a individual salesperson come to you?
Either way.
I have a question way over here.
I don't hear very well over here, but do you have an app coming out that somebody can test this, is what you were saying?
Yeah, it's in the App Store, but in order to access it, the company has to sign up and be part of it. So an individual person just can't go in and use chemistry.
And
so
what's the opening price to sign up for?
Depends on how many users do you
Well,
have.
let's just say
let's sell it right here. How many users do you have?
No, let's say you're talking about 20 salespeople.
20 salespeople would probably be about $500 a year per salesperson.
Per salesperson.
Correct.
Okay.
But Salesforce is $1,250, $1,500. So.
But will you have a good demonstration to entice people to get on?
Oh yeah, we can demo it now for people. Yep.
Okay.
Question the center.
Yes.
Although it looks like a great tool, and I'm sure that people are going to be able to use this for their marketing, I teach people to use their technology tools better and believe that we're only using like 15% of what you can do with Office. So convince me that this is a better solution than teaching them to use what they already have.
Are you a salesperson?
Yes.
Are you spending more time than you should looking for materials?
No.
Do you know what when you give customers information, do you know whether they look at it?
No, I do not.
Okay, that's one reason why you should do this.
Thank you.
All right.
I have a question here in the back.
Yes.
A couple of questions. Do you have any testimonials from very many companies? I mean, sales organizations are pretty primitive in the sense that we'll work on something and we'll accept it as long as there are other people that are actually having success doing it. And the second question I have is kind of related to the gentleman before. It's not that we can't find the information as salespeople. We always have access to the information. I think as a salesperson, it's really about how do we get that information in the customer's hands. So how does your tool actually help with that? It's not that we can't get it. We can always get the information. We always have that available. So.
All right, so to your first question about testimonials, we've only been selling since February, so we have it in the hands of a few customers. They're not there yet where they have enough experience to give us those testimonials. So it's the chicken and egg. My battery dying? Nope. To your second question, how is it different? So if you present to me and I like some of what you're saying, you can email me that material. And then you can find out which of those things I'm looking at, okay? And based on that, you can follow up with me. So if you were selling me, you had 5 different products or whatever, you can tell what I'm spending more time on, and that will help structure that follow-up conversation. And that's way different than the paper world. Because once you go into paper, the loop opens up, and the whole goal is to close loop through data, and that's what chemistry will do.
Question up front.
First, yeah, great presentation, really enjoyed it. So I, with my company, do a lot of content marketing that's aimed at positioning me as a resource in a particular space. I want to become somebody that people know, like, and trust. I want to be the go-to guy. So it sounds to me like then as that comes into the sales piece, I can, using chemistry, come at them and understand exactly how much time they've spent on the pieces of content. So can you walk me through mechanically, what does that look like? What do I see on my screen in terms of analytics around that?
Yeah, it'd be in your analytics, your sales application analytics, you'd be able to see that and see what they opened, how much time they spent on it, et cetera, on a particular piece of content. It's all tied to that user record. So if you send it through chemistry, you can track it through chemistry. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I guess you have to decide at that point, that's not really, marketing will push stuff out there and they'll do inbound and all that stuff, but what the real disconnect is we never give that content to sales so they can use during that customer journey to try to close those people. So if you have a specific piece of content, you can push it out to them and go, hey, we were talking about this, here's a great article, take a look at this, and then you can track that.
Question back right.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit more about the prospect, how they're viewing the materials when you email it to them? Like, what is that experience like?
An email with a web link. The reason we do that is so we can get through spam filters. So if you have a large presentation document, we don't want to load that up and then get hung up in the spam filters.
Question the center.
Yes.
So big data and data analytics is definitely something of the future, and it's great to see you tapping into that. But one of the problems with getting a lot of information is being able to tell what it says, to being able to understand it, particularly for somebody that's not used to looking at it. So how does chemistry show the information in a way that a sales professional can readily understand the real implications of that information as opposed to just straight data? Okay,
so 2 audiences. Sales side of it's simple, right? Sales interacting with customers. I'm saying what the customer does with the information that I send them. The marketing side of it is much deeper dive. That's where you're looking at globally and down to the sales level, who's using what, how overall programs are working, et cetera. So that dashboard, and marketers at that level are more able to interpret all that better. Does that make sense? So we're making it really simple for sales, because that's what they want.
I have a question
Yes.
for you. forgive me if you said this already, but how did you get here? Like, how did you get to build chemistry, and what's your entrepreneurial background?
Okay, so spent 10 years at UMB, built out their 401k product. Well, my first technology, I used punch cards and had a COBOL class at UMKC, okay? But then I hired somebody to actually do the program for me, so I knew I was in technology management at that point in time. UMB, 10 years at UMB, started Salva Rennick Agency, and we started that 20 years ago. Digital wasn't a thing back then, right? As digital has increased, we've got more into that. We have, as a company, built software applications, marketing asset management systems. So we've built software on a project basis for clients. The iteration was when we started Enginology, we wanted to develop our own products and actually start to productize some of that resource that we have inside. So we did two things. We started Nile, which is a way different, that's a luxury watch thing. And it's way better than an iWatch, so it's not technology. And two, we started chemistry. So we've got all the resources to build technology, but also to go to market with them, which is the tricky part, because it's not a good idea until somebody buys it, right?
Yes. Good mention on Nile, too, right?
Always be cool.
I know.
Yeah.
So our last question for you today, what can we as a community do to help you?
So yeah, we're looking for customers. If you know people that might be interested, if you just want to take a view of it, we'll sell direct. We also have a reseller program, so we can reward you handsomely for helping us in that journey. We're starting to build our team out, and we're looking for folks on the sales side, software customer support side mainly. And then also we're in the process of fundraising. So if anybody has any connections on that, it's all time and money. And the more of that we have, the faster we can grow this thing. And that's our absolute goal.
Thank you so much for presenting today.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for coming out. If you guys have any more questions for the presenters, please come talk to them afterwards. And I hope to see you all next week. Wait, I'm sorry. You're waiting for the drawing, I know.
Thanks. All right, I need a volunteer to draw these out. Can someone come up? Taylor. Needs to be someone not associated with the foundation. Thank you. What's your name?
Travis.
Travis. We're going to draw 5 tickets. If we draw your name, please come up here and we'll give you your ticket.
You got it.
Tom Shanahan. Kelly Main. Jim Starsiv. Sorry if I butchered your name. Holmes Osborne. Dave Flessner. All right, if I called your name, please come up here. Thanks, guys. And if I didn't call your name, please buy a ticket.